My name is Phil Smith. I grew up in Vian, or around Vian, north of Vian, about 8 miles in Redbird Smith community back in 1933. And that was during hard time, during the Depression times. And it was rough on everybody back then because everything is during the World War II and everything was rationed. And they had ration stamps for people. They could just get so much groceries and even clothes. You could have one pair of shoes a year. We wore out our shoes by February. Usually we had to go barefoot or wire our shoes together. These work shoes that come up about ankle high, a little over an ankle high. I had one pair that come up way up high, just above the calf, and they called them, back then they called them booties. They laced all the way up. I thought that was really something. There was a guy from the Indian agency, they worked for the Bureau of Indian Affairs, I guess. They used to come around and bring clothes around to the neighborhood every so often, maybe once or twice a year. We go out and pick clothes that you could wear, stuff. And my father was Sam Smith, Redbird Smith's second son. And my mother was Mary Bark. She was from up around Spavinaw. I had 8 brothers and sisters and 2 stepbrothers, 2 half-brothers, and 1 half-sister. We raised a pretty good-sized garden, you know, for the whole family that was there helped with the garden. We had something to eat, you know, wasn't a whole lot, but it was enough to get by on. We had chores to do every evening, you know, to get the water in to the house, or get wood in, cut wood and get it in the house, and milk the cows, things like that, you know. When I was 1 or 2 years old, we moved from our old place because my father lost his allotted land. So we had to move. We moved in a tent. They built a tent, big tent, and we lived in there, had a board floor, you know, on the ground, but we lived there till, I was 10 years old. I started the school at Redbird Smith Indian Day School. I went there for a year, and then they closed it down, and then I went to Gore Public School. We had to walk a half a mile to catch a bus. We had these little, I guess they were kind of like coffee cans, little buckets, small buckets, and we put little holes in the top to kind of give it a little air in there. But we couldn't keep the ants out sometimes. We had potato sandwiches. Made potato sandwiches or egg sandwich or even jelly sandwich, you know. You know, we didn't have any toys except something that we made. We rolled a hoop a lot of time. They come off of a wagon wheel, and it was a metal hoop, probably 10 inches in diameter. And we put a Prince Albert can on the end of a stick, kind of folded a little bit, rolled it on the ground and guided it that way. We got pretty good at it. And then we played that marble game. And then we played horseshoes a lot. They were regular horseshoes too, you know. Some of them were big, some were small, and some were mule shoes we used. All the neighbors come around on Sunday afternoon because they cut each other's hair. And then when they was cutting hair, the rest of us, we played games out there. We hunted a lot also. We hunted, fished, and we kept all the squirrels we killed and fish we caught while we were hunting. We'd roll a fishing line up on a stick with a hook on it, and we get to a water hole, we just cut a stick, you know, for a fishing pole and fish for a while, catch fish, and while we were hunting at the same time. And we'd bring home fish and squirrel.
What'd you hunt with?
Bean flips. We had some old cast iron stoves, you know, that were laying around, and we'd cut and break them up and use cast iron, or sometimes rocks that we'd pick up on a creek bed or something. We milked our own cows. That was my job, milking the cow. Okay. This one cow stepped on my toe one time. I was barefooted, and my toe started coming off, and it split. And walking in grass, the toenail would catch on grass, and boy, it would hurt. Well, I had every day, every evening, I had to go get the milk cow, drive it home in that tall grass, about 10 inches to a foot tall. So, you know, I was always thinking what to do to make things better. So I broke the cow to ride. I had to walk out there, but I rode back. When they went to town on Saturday, because they'd bring me, back then light bread smelled so good, you know. That, and maybe they'd bring bologna. Bologna was just like steak too. It was good back then. And that was a treat for us, getting that, and maybe cookies, and that was just maybe once or twice a month whenever. But
Hey, that's better than nothing.
we looked forward to them coming home, hoping they'd bring something. My father died when I was 10 years old, and it was rough times then, back in 42 or 43. And 2 years later, my mother passed away, back in 45, and it was really rough then. But when my father died, my mother put me in school at Sequoyah, which was an orphan school. That was back in 43 when I went there. And my mother died in 43 or 45, and then I went back to school at Sequoyah because I didn't have any place to live. I was an orphan. At first it was, because they were real strict. They were just getting away from keeping the people from speaking their own languages. But just a few years before that, they couldn't speak their own language. But it was kind of fading out when I went there, but yet they watched us pretty close. But one good thing about it, my mother helped teach at Redbird, and then I learned English and Cherokee together, more or less. We had to watch and see if there was any employees coming before, you know, watching us. We'd get together, Cherokees get together, Creeks get together, and Choctaws and whatever. They'd get together and speak their own language. And some of us, you know, learned a lot of Creek words and Choctaw words too, you know. They didn't feed too good. Everybody stayed hungry all the time, seemed like. We stole food out of the kitchen a lot of times. You know, even at night when it was closed, we'd break in there and get some and stuff. Like peanut butter, like in gallons, you know, and we'd hide it off the campus. We had a place to go get it. A lot of times we just had to steal bread. So we'd go eat some more. I learned early, you know, to learn different things, how people was getting caught, what they were doing, and not to do that. In the fall, we picked pecans and sold them to the employees, you know, for 10 cents a 100. Which, you know, give us, a dime was, you could buy a pop and candy bar back then with a dime.